Combat experience has proven that a formation is a more effective tactical unit than a single aircraft. As a professional naval aviator, you must be able to control your aircraft with precise accuracy for flight in formation with other aircraft. This film will cover two-plane section parade formation maneuvers. These maneuvers include the running rendezvous, parade position, parade turns, introductory cross-under, 180-degree break-up and rendezvous, and lead change. The running rendezvous will save time and fuel when joining up after takeoff. If there is a left crosswind, the leader will line up on the right side of the runway. In a right crosswind, the leader will line up on the left side. If the wind is calm or straight down the runway, the leader will take the far side. After receiving a thumbs up from you and clearance from the tower, the leader starts his takeoff roll. When the leader is 500 feet down the runway, start your takeoff and follow him throughout the departure from the field. On climb out, the leader will maintain 140 knots and 30 inches of manifold pressure and depart the field in accordance with course rules. Check your engine instruments. An engine malfunction is most likely to occur following takeoff. When clear of the traffic pattern, turn inside of the leader to aid in the join-up. Maintain 20 feet of step down throughout the rendezvous. Use the throttle to control the closure rate. When stabilized beneath the starboard parade position, move up to 10 feet of step down. Both parade position and step down will be covered later. This completes the running rendezvous. If you fail to recognize a rapid closure rate, execute the underrun procedure. Reduce throttle and move as far to the right of the leader as necessary to gain control of the relative motion. When the closure rate is under control, join up in parade position. There are 5 flight safety items you must keep in mind when making a running rendezvous. These are: use proper takeoff interval, follow your leader, check your engine instruments periodically, control your closure rate, know and use the underrun procedure if necessary. Now let's go over parade position. In section parade formation, the wingman is in a fixed position on a 40-degree bearing from the leader, with approximately 65 feet between the corresponding parts of the aircraft. Nose to tail distance is 18 feet. 10 feet is correct step-down distance, and 2 feet is proper wingtip clearance. If you are flying in a T-28 Bravo, identify bearing by aligning the tail tie-down ring with the trailing edge of the opposite wingtip. If your leader is in a T-28 Charlie, align the tail skag with the trailing edge of the wing at the inboard static discharge line. Let's fly a proper parade position. Align the tail tie-down ring with the opposite wingtip. If you are behind bearing, the tail reference, the tie-down ring, will be forward of the proper position on the wing. The bearing is controlled by power. Add power to get back on bearing. When you are there, set power to maintain a fixed position. If you get ahead of the bearing, reverse the procedure. Measure step down between corresponding parts of the aircraft. If you are on the proper 40-degree bearing line and have 2 feet of wingtip clearance, your step down is 10 feet. If you move away on the bearing line, you will have more than 2 feet of wingtip clearance and have more than 10 feet step down. As you move up the bearing line, your wingtip clearance and step down will decrease. To stay on the bearing line, control step down with elevator. If you can see sky between the tail reference and the wing, you have more than 10 feet of step down. Use back pressure on the stick to get you back up to the normal position. When you cannot see the reference point on the leader's wing, you have less than 10 feet of step down. Use forward pressure on the stick to get you back down. Maintain wingtip clearance by coordinated use of ailerons and rudder. Determine wingtip clearance by having the correct sight picture of the overall size of the leader's aircraft. The correct view of his inboard wingtip will help maintain 2 feet wingtip clearance. If you have too much clearance, make a slight turn toward the leader and level your wings. As you approach the proper clearance, make a coordinated heading change to align yourself with the leader's aircraft. If your wingtip clearance is too close, make a slight turn away from the leader, level your wings, and when in the correct position, align yourself with the leader. Control nose to tail distance with power. You will be at the proper distance of 18 feet when you are on bearing and have the proper wingtip clearance and step down. If you fall behind, add power. When you reach the proper position, set power to maintain a fixed position. There are 4 flight safety items you should keep in mind when flying parade formation. Maintain proper clearance at all times. Keep your eyes on the leader, but do not stare. Periodically check the engine instruments and warning lights. And most important, keep the relative motion under control. In parade turns, you must exercise greater control of relative motion to maintain a fixed position. The leader always clears the area first. Now he gives the turn signal. He pauses momentarily and rolls into a 30-degree angle of bank. The roll is slow and at a constant rate, designed to reach the 30-degree angle of bank after 30 degrees of turn. The turn is for a minimum of 180 degrees. During the turn, the leader maintains altitude, angle of bank, and a constant throttle setting, making small, smooth corrections for any altitude loss or gain. He will start the roll out of the turn 30 degrees prior to the new heading. All signals given by the leader must be repeated by you. As he starts his roll into the turn away from you, try to match his wings as he rolls. As you roll into the turn, rotate about your own longitudinal axis. Since your radius of turn is longer than the leader's, you will need to add power to maintain parade position. Maintain the proper bearing by keeping the tail tie down and the wingtip aligned in the same vertical plane. Maintain proper step down by keeping the same amount of sky between the underside of the leader's fuselage and the horizon as in straight and level flight. Upon completion of the turn, roll out with the leader rotating about your own longitudinal axis. Reduce power as required to maintain bearing. Now let's do a turn toward you. As the leader starts his roll into you, keep the same view of his aircraft as in level flight. As you roll into the turn, rotate about the leader's longitudinal axis. Since your radius of turn is shorter than his, in order to maintain step down, you will need to apply slight forward pressure on the stick. Simultaneously, reduce power to maintain bearing. To maintain the proper position in this turn, keep the same view of the leader's aircraft as in level flight. As the leader rolls out of the turn, rotate about the leader's longitudinal axis. Apply back pressure and add power to stay on bearing. Readjust power after you have stabilized straight and level flight. In parade turns, observe these 3 flight safety items. Maintain step down at all times. Use your controls in a coordinated fashion. And keep the relative motion under control. Use the introductory cross-under to change position from one side to the other. This keeps the formation flexible. The leader will clear the area and give you the cross-under signal. The leader will keep his plane as steady as possible while you are crossing under. To start the maneuver, increase your step down to 20 feet. Ease off a little power to maintain 18 feet of nose-to-tail distance. Now stabilize beneath the parade position. Note the amount of sky between the tail and wing reference points. When you are well stabilized, make a slight heading change and level your wings. The amount of heading change will determine the crossing rate. Use throttle as necessary to maintain 18 feet of nose-to-tail distance. Upon reaching the position directly below the new parade position, stabilize again. To move into parade position, add a little power and back pressure on the stick. Once in position, reset power. Remember these flight safety items when you execute cross-unders. Maintain 20 feet of step down so as to be clear of the leader's slipstream while crossing under, and avoid rapid lateral motion. The 180-degree breakup and rendezvous establishes an interval between aircraft and provides practice in basic rendezvous principles. The sun should be anywhere on your left in the early morning or in the late afternoon. The leader breaks away in a 45-degree bank turn. Start your turn when the leader is 30 degrees ahead of your wingtip. Kiss off and break into 45 degrees of bank using the same rate of roll as the leader. Upon reaching the reciprocal heading, the leader will roll out smartly. Roll out of the brake turn in column with the leader with an interval of 800 to 1,000 feet. The leader will return to thumbs-up airspeed and brake altitude as quickly as possible. Attain thumbs-up airspeed and the leader's altitude or slightly above to avoid the leader's slipstream. When the leader has reached the proper airspeed and altitude, he will count 6 seconds and roll smartly into a left turn using 20 degrees of bank. As soon as the leader is slightly left of your center line, turn out of column using a 30 to 45 degree angle of bank until the leader is 45 degrees to the right of your nose. As you continue, check altitude with the leader. Check airspeed and reset throttle. Approximate the leader's angle of bank until you intercept the 240 degree rendezvous bearing. Maintain this bearing and gradually take step down. When you approach 18 feet nose to tail, leave the bearing and join up on or slightly inside the leader's radius of turn with 18 feet nose to tail and 20 feet of step down. Pause momentarily and cross under to the parade position. Let's go over it again. When the leader has cleared the area, he will give the break up and rendezvous signal. You must acknowledge the signal. The leader will clear the area again, kiss off and break away in a 45 degree angle of bank. Roll with the same rate of roll as the leader into a 45 degree bank turn. Maintain this bank and brake altitude throughout the turn. After turning 180 degrees, the leader will roll out smartly, adding power to regain thumbs-up airspeed and brake altitude. Add power to a maximum of 30 inches manifold pressure to attain thumbs-up airspeed and the leader's altitude. Roll out of your brake turn in column with the leader. As soon as the leader has regained thumbs-up airspeed and brake altitude, he counts 6 seconds and rolls into a left turn using 20 degrees of bank. When you see him slightly left of your center line, start your turn using 30 to 45 degrees of bank. Continue turning inside the leader, gradually shallowing your angle of bank to place the leader 45 degrees to the right of your nose. Check airspeed and altitude level with the leader. He should be on the horizon. Now approximate the leader's angle of bank and intercept the 240 degree rendezvous bearing. The reference point for correct bearing is a wingtip width of sky between the leader's right wingtip and the leading edge of his vertical stabilizer. Maintain bearing and gradually take 20 feet of step down. When you approach 18 feet nose to tail, leave the bearing and join up on or slightly inside the leader's radius of turn with 18 feet nose to tail and 20 feet of step down. Use power as necessary. After pausing momentarily in this join-up position, execute the cross-under to parade position. There are 3 flight safety items to keep in mind during break-up and rendezvous practice. Never lose sight of the leader. Never stop directly beneath the leader. And know and use the underrun procedure whenever applicable. To keep a formation flexible, the leader must be able to pass the lead. Prior to passing the leader will always form a right echelon. Once the wingman has accepted the leader will exchange positions with his wingman. The old leader makes a coordinated heading change to establish 20 feet of wingtip clearance. He will maintain 18 feet of tail to nose and move down to 20 feet of step down. He moves straight aft, stopping with 18 feet nose to tail clearance, maintaining 20 feet of step down. He then crosses under to the starboard parade position. Let's assume that you are the old leader. Once your wingman accepts the lead, do not take your eyes from him. Make an easy heading change to the left to establish 20 feet of wingtip clearance. Reduce power slightly as you move down to 20 feet of step down, while maintaining 18 feet of tail to nose distance ahead of the new leader. Reduce power slightly and move straight aft, stopping with 18 feet nose to tail. Add power to hold nose to tail and execute a cross under to the starboard parade position. The single most important flight safety item to keep in mind when changing the lead is never take your eyes from the new leader once he accepts the lead. The secret of good formation flying is teamwork. As leader, use steady, deliberate, smooth control movements for all maneuvers. As wingman, follow every move of your leader. Teamwork will result in accurate formation flying. The T-28 is a reliable aircraft which you can normally expect to get into the air and back on the ground safely. However, conditions may dictate that going over the side or bailout will be the only way to save your life. This bailout decision is yours to make and yours alone. Generally speaking, this decision of bailout may be due to emergency conditions such as extreme loss of control, engine failure at night over rough terrain, an uncontrollable fire, or other circumstances. If you do bail out, you must know the proper use of your flight safety equipment and must know bailout procedures. This film will cover personal flight equipment, your parachute, and bailout procedures. The personal flight equipment which you must wear on all flights consists of a complete set of underwear, a properly fitting clean flight suit, identification tags, a survival knife which is carried in a pocket not susceptible to snagging on the aircraft during emergency exit, and ankle-high lace-up flight boots. Check your personal oxygen mask for general condition before all hops. With all your personal flight gear, including your hard hat, check out your parachute. If you were on an over-water flight, you would wear a Mae West. Two types are in general use. The Mark II, a yellow color, and the Mark IIA here, which is international orange. Both types must be pre-flighted. Check the light for operation. Be sure the vest has signal flares, shark repellent, and dye markers. See that the CO2 cylinder is properly seated. Make sure the lanyard safety wire is attached. Inspect both sides and re-snap the covers. Check the oral inflation tube for proper functioning. When checking out your parachute, inspect it for its condition. Check the elastic bands on the cover. See that the ripcord cable is free in its housing. Check pins for proper seating and the safety tie on the bottom pin. Button up the cover. The parachute log should indicate that the chute has had a visual inspection in the last 10 days and has been repacked in the last 90 days. Be sure the D-ring is firmly seated in its pocket. Check all harness disconnects. Now let's go out to the T-28. Never lay your parachute on the ground or use it as a pillow. Should it ever get wet, return it to the paraloft and get another. Put on your properly fitting flight gloves. After completing your pre-flight check of the aircraft, put on your parachute and make certain that the harness fits you snugly. After you have seated yourself in the cockpit, readjust the harness. After starting the engine, put on the last item of personal flight equipment, your hard hat. Adjust the nape properly. Tighten the chin strap. Your visor must be down and clean. The hard hat will have one of several quick disconnect fittings for the oxygen mask. You are now ready to taxi. Your chances of being forced to bail out of a T-28 are remote. But if you ever have to bail out, you must know how. Your life depends on it. Before getting into the specific bailout procedures, let's consider three factors: altitude, airspeed, and attitude. You have the best chance for survival and minimum injury if you bail out early at the highest possible altitude. Altitude consideration is a personal decision requiring thought by every pilot. Optimum airspeed for bailout from the T-28 is 100 to 120 knots. A level attitude is best for bailout. Your decision to bail out must be arrived at considering terrain, weather, and condition of the aircraft, all of which you must evaluate. Once you have made the decision to leave your aircraft, go. A delay may mean your life. Let's go over the basic T-28 bailout procedure using the ground trainer to demonstrate the steps. Adjust your seat to the full-up position. Disconnect the radio cord. Tuck it into the flight suit. Release the safety belt and shoulder harness. Throw the straps into the slipstream. Place one hand on the glare shield and the other on the back of the seat. Now, back into a crouching position as you turn to face the starboard wing. Place both hands flat against the fuselage and somersault yourself out of the aircraft. Before you bail out of the T-28, broadcast a Mayday report if you have time. Normally, bail out to starboard side due to the slipstream. Slow your aircraft to between 100 and 120 knots. Blow open the canopy. Trim for level flight and, if possible, head toward an uninhabited area. Raise your seat to the full-up position. Disconnect radio cords. Tuck them in your flight suit. If you have time, turn off the fuel, ignition, and DC power switches. Release your harness and go. In a spin, always bail out to the outside of the spin. In this case, to the left. If the spin is inverted, gravity will pull you out of the cockpit when you release your safety belt. Bailout is your decision. When you know you have to go, go. Follow your bailout procedures and you will have an excellent chance to remain alive. The T-28, like all naval aircraft, has been test-proven as to performance and reliability. However, it is always within the realm of possibility that engine failure or other situations may occur, making it necessary for you to make an emergency landing. Under such emergencies, there are certain guidelines for handling the T-28. When coupled with good judgment, they will assure maximum safety for yourself and your aircraft. This film will show you what these guidelines are. Engine failures are separated into two categories: high altitude and low altitude. The emergency landing pattern for a high altitude engine failure has two checkpoints. First, the high key at 2,500 feet actual altitude above the intended point of landing, headed upwind. Second, low key at between 1,600 and 1,800 feet actual altitude, one wingtip distance abeam of the intended point of landing, headed downwind. Upon a high altitude engine failure, transition to a 130 knot descent. Check gear. Flaps and speed brake up, and cowl flaps closed. Turn toward a suitable field. Place mixture enrich and make a systematic check of the cockpit to determine the cause of the emergency. Attempt an air start if altitude permits. If unsuccessful, place prop control in full decrease. Make a forced landing report. Plan to arrive at high key with 2,500 feet of actual altitude. Airspeed 130 knots. At high key, start a 180-degree turn in either direction toward low key. Transition to the 110-knot descending attitude and begin the landing checklist. At low key, abeam the intended point of landing between 1,600 and 1,800 feet of actual altitude, your landing checklist should be complete except for canopy, flaps, and wheels. Lower the landing gear on final only if you are landing on a prepared surface. At about the 90-degree position, lower half flaps. Adjust the approach to allow a long straightaway of 1,800 to 2,000 feet. Lower full flaps in the straightaway as necessary to hit the point of intended landing. Blow open the canopy and turn battery, gas, and mixture off prior to touchdown. Again, after engine failure at high altitude, attempt an air start. If unsuccessful, hit high key and roll into the 180-degree turn toward low key. Transition to the 110-knot descending attitude. Plan your descent to have 1,600 to 1,800 feet actual altitude at low key. Your landing checklist should be complete except for canopy, wheels, and flaps. Lower 1/2 flaps at about the 90. Adjust your approach to allow 1,800 to 2,000 feet of straightaway on final. When on final, turn off battery, gas, and mixture. Lower full flaps as necessary to hit the point of intended landing. Lower the landing gear only for a prepared surface. Blow open the canopy prior to touchdown. The prime consideration in handling a low-altitude engine failure is to maintain flying speed until contact with the ground. Your immediate reaction in this situation must be to assume a safe flight attitude and to retract the gear if it is not up. Choose the best available landing site governed by your speed and altitude. Check harness locked and, if time allows, make a forced landing report. Use flaps as necessary. Blow open the canopy and turn battery, gas, and mixture off prior to touchdown. You have seen the procedures for handling an in-flight emergency. You will practice these emergency procedures under simulated conditions. When you have learned them, you will have gained the confidence necessary to see you safely through an actual emergency landing.